Welcome to India Today Global. I'm Shashank Patu, sitting in our New Delhi studio.
This is Rohit Sharma, and you're watching The Race for the White House.
This is a show where we get you the latest from America's political landscape. On today's show, we will decode Kamala Harris's first television interview after deciding to run for the White House. Also on the show, we will tell you about how Trump has pitched himself as an IVF supporter. All of this and much more, so let's get started. In her first television interview after deciding to run for the White House, Vice President Kamala Harris sat down with CNN's Dana Bash alongside her running mate Tim Walz. She defended her shifts on certain policy issues over the years and also reiterated her support for President Joe Biden. Kamala Harris, alongside her running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, exhibited a good tag team approach as they stuck mostly to their talking points while navigating a range of questions. The CNN interview, which offered a glimpse into the Democratic ticket strategy, revealed both strengths and weaknesses as they face the electorate. Harris, who is sometimes known for her missteps and gaffes, skillfully pivoted on a number of contentious issues, particularly Israel, the economy, and immigration. When pressed on her stance, she managed to sidestep questions on her flip-flops on border security. However, her refusal to directly address questions about her ethnicity by dismissing them as part of former President Trump's old, tired playbook left some viewers wanting more. On foreign policy, particularly regarding Israel, Harris has maintained a steady course, and she signaled that no significant change was expected in current US policy. This consistency, while expected, will do nothing to bring in Democratic voters in key swing states who protested on all days of the Democratic National Convention, which finished earlier this month. But all of this does is that it ensures stability in a critical area of international relations for America. Governor Walz, however, also found himself in some turbulent waters. He was faced with tough questions about previous false statements. Walz defended his remarks as being spoken in passion. His attempt to cover up the controversy around carrying weapons in war zones with this justification may not exactly resonate well with all voters, leaving some skepticism about his candor. He was also asked about a driving under the influence case or DUI case from his time as a congressman, where evidently his then staffers lied to the media. Despite the pressure, Walz did echo Harris's sentiments on key issues, including backing President Biden's fitness for office. Harris provided some insight into the moment she received the call from President Biden informing her of his decision to drop out of the race, adding a very personal touch to an otherwise strategic conversation. The interview was notably short, leaving little room for in-depth discussion. While Harris avoided any major gaffes, there was also little in the way of new, energizing content to rally undecided voters. The lingering issue of her past flip-flops, particularly on immigration, is likely to follow her on the campaign trail, which will require careful handling in future appearances. Now, to know more about the Kamala Harris's interview, we are joined by our White House correspondent, Rohit Sharma. Rohit, could you tell us a little bit about the interview? How did Kamala Harris do in her first sit-down interview after becoming the Democratic nominee?
Look, this was Kamala Harris's first sit-down interview. She decided to run for the office on June 29th, as soon as President Biden decided to withdraw his nomination. So it's been going on for some time. Media has been asking the question, when will she sit down? It kind of became a talking point, also peddled by and propagated by Republicans who wanted to see if she could actually do a sit-down interview without making any mistakes. And I think to answer all of that, she sat down today with CNN's Dana Bash. And what we saw in the interview is she was contained. Both Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, they both stuck to their talking points, did not make any gaffes. Obviously, that's expected of them at this point in time in this race. But also, did not provide too much political, or policy details. And I think that's something important, especially now that we're only like 67 days away from election. I mean, she did talk about certain things, but overall, I think from her campaign standpoint, it was an okay interview. It did not. She's not going to get criticized for this interview, or she's not going to get rave interviews for this interview. It's just one of those things that she had to do. She did it, and I think as the campaign progresses, we'll probably see more sit downs, and people would actually like to see her do one-on-ones with media and media across the spectrum, not only friendlier media as we saw today.
Rohit, could you tell us a little bit about some specific policies and issues that she spoke about in the interview that stood out to you?
She talked about a lot of stuff. The first question that was asked to her was about, can what would your first, 100 days look like, the agenda, and she was all over. She talked about economy. She talked about child credit, helping middle class families. She talked about the first time home buyers getting $25,000. She talked about immigration a little bit. So I think she was all over. She was trying to like hit those campaign talking points and bring those out. She did go back about the new way forward, something that we heard at the DNC. One of her campaign slogans now is new way forward. But I think overall, she was asked about certain things, specifically on immigration, and like why didn't her administration, well, her or Biden administration, I should say, at this point in time, didn't do enough on immigration, and she felt, she pivoted on that question, and she made it about Trump and saying that Trump killed a border deal. We were about to get a border deal, which was endorsed by the Border Patrol, and he decided that he doesn't want this to happen because it's not going to help him politically in the election. So she did make that valid point, but did not answer if they could have done this sooner. Also, they talked about economy, inflation. She's talked about price gouging, which has become a talking point with President Trump, who called her a communist today. So she talked about that. She tried to, show sympathy towards middle class families who are struggling, and saying her economic plan will help them get out of the the economy and how it's stuck right now. And I think so. She was trying to, sell those points, but again, a lack of policy details in the interview. Also, she all talked about, and Walz talked about President Biden and if he was fit. And I think she was asked at one point in the interview if President Biden was mentally fit or not, and if she did hide something, or some people hid something from the general public. She said she did not. She said she's seen President Biden and the way he has in meetings, in the briefing room. I mean, and I think she sort of alluded to the fact that he's still mentally fit and to serve as the president of the United States, which we would expect from her. There was one point in the interview that she was asked about how she got a call from the president of the United States, letting her know that he was not going to run. It was a personal moment in the interview. And then she was talking about fracking, and how she's flipped up on fracking. She was asked about, if she does become the president of the United States, would she appoint a Republican to her cabinet? And she said yes. And I think that was trying to, show that she doesn't believe in partisan politics, and she's open to having ideas from people who could be across or from a different political spectrum. So I think that was in a nutshell, the interview, only 18 minutes long. And again, as I said, did not do much damage, but did not reveal too many things as well.
Right. And of course, moving apart from Kamala Harris, Governor Walz, her running mate, was also interviewed. How do you think he performed in this interview with CNN?
Well, Tim Walz, I think, got the harder questions tonight. He was asked about the false statements that he's made over the years, starting from when he was he was caught for DUI, driving under influence, and how his campaign when he was a congressman lied about it. He was obviously asked about the National Guard question, and he was never deployed, but he said he carried arms, in the battlefield, which did not happen. And he defended it as, comments that were made, in a moment where he was talking passionately about those things, and people can, look at it like that, and versus, or he was trying to get the message across and may have misspoken. So he definitely got those tough questions tonight, and I think he did okay. People who've already made up their minds about those comments, I don't think he was able to change those their mind, and he won't be able to change their mind. So yeah, people did see how this dynamic would work. Harris spoke for the most part, and Tim Walz was there nodding and agreeing with some of the things that she said. He was also asked about his son and how he was his that emotional moment where his son Gus said, "That's my father." So I think he also talked about that, and some of the things from the convention. But I think the focus was not on Walz as much as it was on Harris, and I think it was pretty clear from the line of questioning as well.
And, the final question I have for you is, in your opinion, will this interview help her with undecided voters? Does it move the needle one way or the other in this race?
I think going forward and going forward, I think she would need to sit down and do one-on-ones. With people would like to see her on traditional media and in cable news and network news and all that, but also like there's a lot of a lot of people that still are trying to understand what she stands for. We talked about her flip-flopping issues, and reminds me of 2004's John Kerry campaign, where he had changed position when it came when it became known that he had said certain things that was completely different from what he was saying on the campaign trail. So she'll have to defend those things. She'll have to do one-on-ones. She'll have to go to non-friendly media, probably go to Fox and do an interview with them. It doesn't hurt. So I think that she'll have to do all of that. Plus, I think one area that they can improve on is try to talk to the voters about their issues in a way that they can understand. Now, like today, well, one of the moment was first-time home buyers get $25,000. It's a great talking point. But people want to know specific details about how are you saving the economy? How are you bringing down inflation? How are you reducing immigration? How are you securing the border? How are you stopping the war in Gaza? How are you going to deal with Russian President Putin and the ongoing war in Ukraine? I think she needs to talk more about those things so people can see for themselves difference between her and President Trump. Now, one of the opportunities that she will get to do that would be on September 10th in Pennsylvania, one of the key swing states. So we'll have to wait and watch. But I think overall, as I said earlier during our conversation, no damage done, but it wasn't a big revelation of any sorts. So I'm not sure if she's going to be winning voters after this, or new voters, I should say, after this interview. But again, she's not losing any existing voters as well. So I think at the end of it all, I think it probably was a okay night for Kamala Harris.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Moving on to Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. In a rally at Michigan, the former US president said that if he wins a second term, he wants to make IVF treatment free. Take a listen to what he had to say.
As part of our efforts to help working families, I'm announcing today in a major statement that under the Trump administration, your government will pay for, or your insurance company will be mandated to pay for, all costs associated with IVF treatment, fertilization for women, IVF treatment. Because we want more babies, to put it very nicely. And for this same reason, we will also allow new parents to deduct major newborn expenses from their taxes, so that parents that have a beautiful baby will be able. So we're pro-family. Nobody's ever said that before.
Trump did not elaborate on how he would fund these plans. Trump also said that he would allow new parents to deduct major newborn expenses from their taxes if re-elected. IVF, or in vitro fertilization treatments, are notoriously expensive and can cost tens of thousands of dollars for a single round. Many women require multiple rounds, and there is no guarantee of success. The announcement comes as Trump has been under intense criticism from Democrats for his role in appointing Supreme Court justices who cast decisive votes in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade, which was a constitutional case that ensured the right to abortion. The decision is expected to be a major motivator for Democrats in the 2024 election and was a major theme at the party's convention last week. Most notably, it has become a part of Vice President Kamala Harris's speech as she addresses crowds across the country.
And just yesterday, when he was asked if he has any regrets about ending Roe v. Wade, Donald Trump, without even a moment's hesitation, you would think he would reflect on it for a second, said no regrets.
Kamala Harris has also repeatedly stated that Trump is a threat to women's rights, including access to abortion, birth control, and fertility treatments. Addressing supporters in key swing states, Harris reiterated her warning that Trump would sign a nationwide abortion ban in office.
Ours is a fight for the future, and it is a fight for freedom. like the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And if he wins, Donald Trump will go further. He will sign a national abortion ban. You best believe. Why don't they trust women?
Now, Donald Trump's campaign has been hit by another scandal. Two of his campaign staff were accused of involvement in an altercation with an army official at the Arlington National Cemetery. The incident happened during former President Donald Trump's visit to the cemetery, where he was accompanying the families of two US soldiers who were killed in the 2021 Kabul airport bombing. The army has stated that its employee was abruptly pushed aside and unfairly attacked by Trump's staff and surrogates.
From my understanding and from what the Army said is that an ANC employee who attempted to ensure adherence to the rules of the ANC was pushed aside. The employee acted with professionalism and decorum, but there was a bit of an incident that did happen.
This confrontation arose when an army official attempted to enforce federal regulations that prohibit partisan political activities at Arlington National Cemetery. Arlington is an important national monument and is the final resting place of thousands of America's fallen soldiers. When an official intervened to stop a Trump photographer from trying to accompany Trump to the gravesites, which was against the rules, this person was roughly handled. Following the incident, the army has declared that the matter is closed, noting that the employee, although treated poorly, handled the situation with professionalism. The unnamed staff member has also opted not to press any charges. The Trump campaign, however, has countered by downplaying the incident, with spokesperson Stephen Chung accusing the army employee of having a mental health episode. The Trump campaign released a video of Trump's visit shortly after the incident, which also included a statement criticizing President Joe Biden for the deaths of service members in Afghanistan. This act was widely condemned by Democrats as well as others, who accused Trump of politicizing the sacred ground of Arlington National Cemetery. In response to the controversy, Senator J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, defended the former president and criticized Vice President Kamala Harris. Vance suggested that Harris's outrage over the cemetery incident was insincere, and he also broadly attacked her for the Biden administration's handling of the Kabul evacuation back in 2021. The Army's stance remains firm that federal laws, Army regulations, and other defense policies regarding political activities at national cemeteries were communicated to the Trump campaign, which then disregarded them. Despite the backlash and the political controversy, the Pentagon has not pursued legal action against the Trump campaign. And now it's time for some quick updates from America's political battleground that you might have missed. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has approved a request to provide the Secret Service with additional military support capabilities for presidential and vice presidential candidates for the upcoming election. Pentagon Deputy Spokesperson Sabrina Singh did not provide details on the type of support that would be provided, but she did say that Austin has directed the US Northern Command to plan and provide support to the Secret Service at various locations during the election. Former President Donald Trump has asked a federal court to intervene in his New York hush money criminal case, where Trump was convicted in May of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records related to concealing a $130,000 hush money payment to adult movie actress Stormy Daniels. These affair allegations threatened to disrupt his 2016 presidential run, and now Trump's lawyers are seeking a pathway to overturn his felony conviction and indefinitely stay his sentencing next month. Lawyers for the current Republican nominee asked the federal court in Manhattan to seize the case from the state court where it was tried, arguing that the historic prosecution violated his constitutional rights and ran afoul of the US Supreme Court's recent presidential immunity ruling. If the case is moved to federal court, Trump's lawyers said that they will then seek to have the verdict overturned and the case dismissed on immunity grounds. Finally, Vice President Kamala Harris and her Democratic running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, hit the road in Georgia by bus. But it's not just any campaign bus. This one is an armored US Secret Service vehicle driven by agents that comes with lights and sirens and secure communications. It's wrapped in bright blue and emblazoned with Harris Walz in white on the side. As part of a two-day bus tour sneaking through rural Georgia, the duo are campaigning in the critical battleground state. Campaign officials believe that in order to win the state over Republican President Donald Trump, the Democrats have to make inroads in these strongholds. They need more than Atlanta and the suburbs that delivered for Joe Biden in 2020. With that, that's all we have for you today on Race for the White House. We'll see you again on Monday with more updates coming in from America. Till then, this is me, Shashank Matu, signing off. Have a nice weekend.